Technical difficulties here, folks. All right, looks like we have people flooding back in. Good.
I'm going to post that in the Discord.
So we had a power blip going there. I'm not sure what happened. We just about everything related to Northern Perspective is on UPS, which is battery backup, which is supposed to carry us through a power issue like that. But apparently our actual modem is not. So something else for Cypher and Fox to go out and buy, so we can ensure a perfect user experience and viewing experience for everybody. So sorry about that, everybody, but nice to see everybody coming back in. So there you go. But that's a to-do for us.
Yeah, because
Vicky Slayer with $2. Cypher got too close to the truth.
Yeah, they're trying to stop us. Gonna have to try harder, because it's interesting. Like, the room just went pitch black. And we were like, what's going on, right? Because the computer monitors stayed on, all that stayed on, but the internet died.
Internet dropped. Internet dropped like Trudeau's poll ratings. So maybe not that fast. So
it was pretty fast. It was all of a sudden.
Anyway, all right. Looks like everyone's coming back in. So let's go before we get another interruption.
Well, and if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button for us again, please, because then everybody who we lost on the last stream, hopefully they'll be able to find us on this.
Let's get back up to 1,800 likes. We'll repeat our secret. How about that?
Yeah, we won't keep bugging you, but if you could please hit the like button.
That would be great. Please ring the doorbell on your way back in. So anyhow, thank you very much, everybody. And Diane Sylvain with $2 super chat. It is climate change.
Well, I was saying to Cypher while we were off, I was like, because the power went off, it lasted off for like maybe 2 seconds, and then everything came back up again. I mean, the computers were on because we have battery backup for the computers, but we're like, why did that happen? So there's too many EVs plugged in around here.
Yeah, exactly. Jibo, he probably lives down the street.
And I don't know if this is from the old stream or this current one, but we have a $2 super chat from 5W. It says, the man found him. Goodbye, Cypher and Fox. Thanks.
I think it was the old one.
The man's gonna have to try harder.
Okay, let's continue.
So OPO, what we're acknowledging here is we did not have a cost accounting code in year one, and so it is a judgment how much was being spent on ArriveCAN versus other operational activities.
So I think there's many Canadians would disagree and say a forensic audit in this case by a third party is necessary for each of these, because the more we learn, the more vague and the more evasive, frankly, many of the witnesses will be on this. But Mr. Moore, I want to ask you about performance bonusing. The executives at CBSA that have been responsible for what happened here with ArriveCAN, can you confirm whether they have received bonuses this year or not?
I can't confirm whether they received bonuses this year, as the year is not actually at an end, but I can confirm that during the period under review, I did receive performance payments, but we've already agreed to come back with information of that to the committee.
Going forward then in that case, knowing now with the Auditor General's report now tabled, do you believe executives at CBSA responsible for ArriveCAN should get performance bonuses in the future?
Well, I can't comment on that because lots of people are involved in lots of different things.
So you wouldn't rule out, based on what you know and the findings here in the Auditor General's report, the Procurement Ombudsman report, and all the facts that you know, based on how atrocious the financial record keeping was at CBSA, you can't rule out and say now that executives at CBSA that were responsible for this mess should not get a performance bonus going forward, now that you know it's in the Auditor General's report.
So I know what's in the Auditor General, and I'm disappointed. So I come back to my previous comment. When we do our financial assurance, we're on average, it's around about 8 or 9% errors. Most of those are not compliance errors, they're administrative errors. In the Auditor General's case, she identified 18%. That is very disappointing, and I recognise that. However, a lot of that is to do with the fact we did not have a cost accounting code at that time.
Well, there's a $60 million error with ArriveCAN that Canadians are frustrated with, and again, you're disappointed. I'm going to ask you again, so being by disappointed in the contents of the report and how damning it was about the financial practices and record keeping, you're not going to rule out that executives at CBSA this year are going to get performance bonuses based on what we now know with ArriveCAN?
Well, I don't think that's a question I can answer because I do not set performance bonuses. But what I can say is that we are taking action to address all of the recommendations in the Auditor General's report. But I do not agree that it's we don't have the information. There are areas in the information which we are uncertain about, and we had to make estimates.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Ms. Atwin, please go ahead.
Oh, Atwin. Atwin. Oh my goodness. Here's my question regarding performance bonuses. Why don't we go back and look at what performance bonuses were paid in relation to ArriveCAN around the time that ArriveCAN was actually released, and maybe reevaluate that and maybe claw that back? I don't know. I don't know if you can. From a legal perspective, not sure if you can, but that would be very interesting to know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Moore, and your colleagues for being with us today. And forgive me, I'm kind of joining halfway through here, so I'm going to hopefully not be repeating myself or what my colleagues have already asked. So I see from your submitted, your introductory notes here, you've got that the Public Health Agency of Canada asked the CBSA to assist them by developing a digital form, and the first version of ArriveCAN was then released 6 weeks later. Can you walk us through what those first 6 weeks looked like?
Those first 6 weeks were very, very difficult for the agency. The pandemic had been announced, and we were very much at the front line. We had individuals in the Border Services officers who were dealing with people who could have been infected by COVID-19. There were a number of repatriation flights.
Yeah, these are just going to be softball questions. We're going to skip this.
Flying on our own on this one.
And a quick answer, Mr. Moore.
So we did have many conversations with our colleagues around the world, but I think we were slightly flying by the ear because every requirement was different.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brock, please.
As he then was at the CBSA, who did Min Doan directly report to?
Reported to the President, John Osowski, which is the same for me.
Okay. I'm sure you're familiar with the allegations of Min Doan's deleted tens of thousands of emails over 4 years.
I'm aware.
You're aware of that? When did you first become aware of that, sir?
When it was raised in committee, I was not aware before then.
I'm sorry?
When it was raised here in committee, or I wasn't aware before.
Okay. Would you agree with me, sir, that potentially deleting, not by corrupted means, but deliberately deleting 4 years worth of relevant emails during the ArriveCAN development and outlay would constitute not only a highly suspicious action on behalf of Min Doan, but also potentially illegal under the criminal code, thinking to mind obstruction of justice? Do you believe that that's worthy of an internal investigation?
So the CBSA does take allegations of wrongdoing very, very seriously, and my understanding that is being looked at.
Is the CBSA investigating that internally, yes or no?
I do not know if they're investigating that specifically, but
will you look into that, and will you provide us with a response?
I would be happy for the agency to provide a response.
Thank you. Are you aware whether or not that allegation of deleting tens of thousands of emails over 4 years has been reported to the RCMP?
So I'm seeing some reports from Barnaby and some people that this is echoing. That's very bizarre. Kind of confused as to why that would be. I'm pausing it for a bit, and we'll see if it's just the video feed, or if it's just us. But I don't think it should be us, because this was working fine before. So, damn it, the man's coming to get us.
They can try.
I'll let you know if I see any cruisers pulling up outside our door. But anyway.
Well, they better not be loud. Our kid's asleep.
Yeah, that won't be cool. Anyhow, great questions by Brock here to try and get an answer. So hopefully we're not echoing, but anyway, let's see if we can get Brock back.
I'm not aware whether it's been reported to the RCMP.
Okay. Now, I want to circle back to Government of Canada strategies. There's a couple of issues that raised in the Auditor General's report. Firstly, you, CBSA, I shouldn't say, not you, CBSA informed the Auditor General during the report stage that GC Strategies was awarded their initial contract on the basis of a proposal that is submitted. CBSA indicated that it had discussions at the time with 3 potential contractors about submitting a proposal to develop the ArriveCAN app, yet through investigation, the Auditor General found that only 1 proposal was received by the CBSA and not for Government of Canada strategies. Why would the agency deliberately mislead the Auditor General?
So my understanding is at the start of the pandemic, and again, I was not directly involved in these discussions, that they mocked up what the ArriveCAN first version would look like, and they asked 3 organizations, Deloitte, Apple, and GC Strategies.
I'm aware of that. Why would the CBSA deliberately mislead the Auditor General in saying that you received a proposal from Government of Canada strategies when in fact you did not? Why would they deliberately mislead? Yep.
So I'm not aware of that, and I'm sure.
You read the Auditor General report?
Well, I've read the Auditor General's report, but
Did you not read that section?
Well, the section there is around GC Strategies was providing people.
No, sir. You, the CBSA, said that GC Strategies provided a proposal. The Auditor General confirmed it did not. So the question is very simple. Why is the CBSA actively misleading the Auditor General in the performance of her role? It really begs to mind the cozy relationship that Government of Canada Strategies has with the CBSA. Second case in point.
Wow, Brock is going after them on this. Like that's a really big allegation, and Brock is not going to make that unless he has some solid foundation in order to make it, right? So, and it's very, very relevant because this guy, Jonathan Moore, has been at the CBSA through this whole period, was the CFO, and would have been involved in supplying this information to the Auditor General for her report when she was asking for it over the last, well, I'd say the last 365 days, but it was from about November of 2022 to about January of 2024 when she completed the report. So it's very interesting that they provided information to the Auditor General report that's saying, oh, we received a bid from GC Strategies, and the Auditor General saying, no, you didn't. So that's what his issue is here. So that's very interesting. And again, like the more they get into us, the more people that come out of this, and we kind of thought that this would be the case, but it's just something to see it in real time, to see just this expand, and more people are getting caught in these contradictions and these lies.
There was a reference to a $25 million sole source contract going to GC Strategies, and the CBSA invited Government of Canada Strategies to write their own contract. If that's not showing favoritism to GC Strategies, I don't know what is. So what is going on at the CBSA to allow these highly irregular and suspicious contracting practices with Christian Firth and Darren Anthony of Government of Canada Strategies?
So as I've said before, that is not permitted under the rules and regulations. And
but it happened.
It happened, and so...
So who was responsible for that?
That's what the investigation is considering.
Surely, sir, you must have some suspicion. Were you personally involved in allowing GC to do that?
I was not involved in GC Strategies at all.
Are you prepared to name names, sir? Are you preparing to speak truth to power? Are you protecting your president?
I'm not protecting anybody. My understanding is that's all being looked at as part of the investigation.
Who's looking into it?
The investigation and also the RCMP. And
you're talking about Mr. Lafleur, the so-called independent investigator that reports to Ms. O'Gorman?
He is the internal investigator.
Right.
Just like
he's not independent.
And the RCMP are independent, and they are also looking at
the RCMP is independent.
I am not aware of how the status of that. What I am aware of is, it has been longer than our normal standard operating procedures. So our service standards are 120 working days to complete an investigation. It has been longer than that.
I can tell you, Canadian taxpayers are very disappointed in the operations of the CBSA, sir.
That is our time, gentlemen. Mr. Baines, please, for 5 minutes.
I can tell you that Brock is completely correct. Canadians aren't just disappointed, we are livid. We are absolutely livid and disgusted with how the CBSA has been spending taxpayer money with no regard, no consideration to where those dollars come from. We've talked about this before, we'll talk about it again, and we will repeat it because it's important. There needs to be respect of each and every dollar that is actually collected from Canadian taxpayers. We don't choose to pay our taxes, we have to.
Or you could go to jail. I suppose that's the choice.
Or we can go to jail. But the fact that they then take that money and just brazenly hand this out with no regard, it's frankly, it's inexcusable. None of these guys should have jobs if they're going to be showing this disregard for our money. They wouldn't be spending their own money like this. So why should they be trusted with spending our money like this? That's the question. Like, Canadians don't want to hear it. What we want to hear is who's responsible. And this guy's saying, he's the CFO. Well, I don't know. Bullshit. You absolutely know. And if you don't, you shouldn't be the CFO then, should you? Believe me, I know some CFOs, and I've worked with some. And the good ones know every single dollar and where it is, where it goes, who spent it. It doesn't matter the size of the organization. And do you know why? It's because that's literally their job. They have to know. And if they don't, they go digging until they find out what it is. But this is the problem. These people, they don't care. Anyway, I'm going to stop my rant because I'll go on for like another 10 or 15 minutes and nobody wants to hear that. Coco Donnie with a $2 super chat. Buy that man a steak and a beer. I promise, paid for. Yeah, absolutely. Heartsinger with a $7 super chat. Confurious. Yeah, I guess I may have said that. If you don't coin that phrase, Cypher, I will. One definition is the emotional state of Canadians feeling listening to Liberals talking. That's a very good good description of it. So thank you very much. There you go. There's a new word added to the Oxford Dictionary. Confurious. 420 hitter with a $2 super chat. He just got brocked. He sure did. Okay, glasses are fine, everybody. Don't worry. And we're gonna get past Mr. Baines here in a second.
Thanks, Mr. Baines. Mrs. Vignola, please.
Thank you very much. Earlier, Mr. Moore, you said that you weren't aware that members of your team had received an award for the LCAGM. How can that be? Because it seems to me that as an employee, they'd like to be given a pat on the back by their boss.
I'll ask Alex to give you a detailed answer, but I am disappointed because in my branch we do like to celebrate success, and I thought it would have been notified to me.
En contexte, Monsieur le Président.
For context, Chair, I report to the controller, and the controller reports to another level. Oh, yes. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know who would be involved, but Mr. Leahy, earlier we talked about GCRA, that is to say CARM, and there were some elements that were somewhat like ArriveCAN. A lot of goodwill. You wanted to accelerate things. Yeah, it seemed to be like a nerve center for trade. So, how many pages were in the submission from Deloitte? That is to say, what they submitted in terms of specifications. How detailed was it for CARM?
Sur le contrat?
Are you talking about the contract? No, the book of technical specifications. Were there any comments made? And if so, how many? Well, hundreds of pages, and there were a variety of documents, but some 600 plus pages, and there were comments where people from the CBSA had to comment. Were there only comments from the IT people, but from the CBSA as well? From both. It's supposed to start operating May 14? No, it's May 13. May 13. Well, for one, let's not quibble over one day. So are we going to be faced with software that won't be tested enough? CARM has been tested for 2 years. 6 separate activities have been tested. 80 million to date? The budget, the development budget?
Perhaps
That's
you
my
can
time.
get back
I'll
to
just
us in
answer that.
writing,
So-
unless you've got the information there.
It's the development to date is the development budget is 438 and 182 million paid to Deloitte. That's what came up at the last committee. The question was, how much did you pay Deloitte, and how much have you spent on development of this? So 438 on development and 182 to Deloitte for development.
Thanks very much. Mr. Bachrach, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Moore, to a previous question, you indicated that no one raised red flags about GC strategies until this committee's investigation began.
Well, we know that's incorrect, and I was incorrect because I actually missed a super chat from Jerry Savoy. I apologize about that. So what Jerry said, it was looks like shortly after we resumed the stream, Liberals trying to stop Northern Perspective to stop showing Canadians the truth. So you know, I wouldn't put it past them. And Brenda Wee with a 279 super chat, rant on, let us know what's what's wrong. And Stephanie Wardley with a $5 super chat from Urban Dictionary, confurious, a term derived from the words confused and furious when one is both confused and angry. I hope that's good, and I hope that's actually there. So anyway, let's go, Mr. Bachrach.
Stand by that statement?
I do, and I find that disappointing. And I think one of the things we have learnt from here is we do need greater oversight of procurement and task authorizations in the organisation, which is why we have developed up the procurement improvement plan. I think, you know, going back to 2020, the procurement team was relatively small. We have now enhanced the procurement team to act as an assurance provider as well as a contract authority for the contracts we do.
To be clear, though, Mr. Moore, didn't Bottler raise serious concerns and allegations regarding the relationship between GC Strategies and CBSA in 2021?
So my understanding is that Bottler at the time raised concerns with the sorry, I'm losing. So with ISTB around the payments, they were making the complaints that they had not been paid by Dalian and Cordix. It wasn't until I think November 2022 that they raised allegations, which went straight to the president, and the president passed those to the Internal Affairs, who then subsequently passed them to the RCMP.
So then, but this committee's investigation didn't start until after that. So CBSA had received the concerns from Bottler prior to this committee beginning its work on ArriveCAN, correct?
I can't precisely remember the dates, but I was made aware of the allegations from the President when she received them in, I think, November 2022, and then they were passed to Internal Affairs.
Yeah, I guess the surprising part of your statement that no one had raised red flags about GC strategies is the fact that if you read the Bottler investigation report that they provided to CBSA, it's alarming. What's the communications and the relationships that are documented in that report point to, and admittedly, not all of these have been proven out, but they point to major misconduct at CBSA. And yet it's taken this committee's work to get to this point where the RCMP is now looking into it, and there are something like 12 different investigations into how CBSA conducts procurement. So I'm just wondering why CBSA didn't take Bottler's red flags more seriously back when they raised them.
And this is a question we've all been waiting for the answer for, right? It's and I think Bottler has been waiting for the answer for this as well because of the timeline that has been laid out. We've read about this in the Globe and Mail. We've heard about it in committee. Bottler was raising the red flag not on ArriveCAN necessarily, but on GC strategies, which is related to ArriveCAN because they've been just as shady in the Bottler deals they were in ArriveCAN. And as we came to learn, both Cortex and Dalian were just as shady in the Bottler deal as it was in ArriveCAN. So I'm really glad to actually hear BACRAC asking these questions because we want answers to these. Goko Donnie with a $2 super chat. Things you can't say on X for 200, Alex. And Peter G with a $5 super chat. Now that the stream is back, if we hit 1,800 likes, will you tell us the secret again? Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll tell you the secret again. It's not really a secret anymore, though, since we told it on the last one.
But, 1,800 likes. So let's get up there. And Leo Orchard jumping in with a $1 super chat. Thank you very much for that.
So I have not seen...
Sorry, Mr. Moore. I'm sorry, we're quite a bit past our time. Perhaps you can provide that in writing?
Well, perhaps...
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
If I could say, Chair, I have not seen the Bottler report. It's not been provided to me.
Okay, thanks very much. Mr. Berthold?
Merci. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Moore, I want to come back to the letter. This, I feel, is an important part of this whole ArriveCAN issue. The letter that you sent to Madame Reza with respect to the exception that should be made for national security. There's no date. When was it written?
It was written, my understanding, on the 1st of June, so I'm sorry that we don't seem to have the date on the letter.
1st June of?
1st of June of 2022. 2020, pardon.
Okay, le 1er juin.
June 1, 2020. You seem to... you were ready to answer questions earlier. I have a question. You wanted that the supplier was XR when we were looking for it earlier? Yes, I had a meeting with Mr. Utano's team, and they intended to deal with XR, which was a company that had worked for Transport Canada. Who organized the meeting? Mr. Utano's team. Do you know if they had any links with GC strategy? The two companies, it's marked there, the two companies are together on the agenda. They were noted agenda together. So you found a supplier for modern tools, XR, but it was XR GC strategy. Can you explain to me exactly what it meant? What exactly? Earlier you talked to me about GC strategy. Why? The two, when I look at the invitation that I received in April, the two companies were named on the agenda, XR/GC strategies. The two names were together. So it was in this letter then that you signed, Mr. Moore, and it was the first time that you saw GC strategies without naming them. The supplier that you were recommending, that you were quoting in the letter to the minister for PSPC, was in actual fact made up of GC Strategies and the aforementioned one.
Aware of that. The letter was provided to me by the individuals who were responsible for preparing it, and as you said, it did not refer to the actual name. That's why I asked Mr. Leahy to answer, because he was aware of the names.
Donc, c'est comme ça.
So that's how then GC Strategy got into the file of ArriveCAN.
I would say that for my comment, that reference was not to an individual company which I was aware of, and also it was a reference to a company which was doing commercial goods rather than doing traveller goods, which ArriveCAN is.
Mais pour, là, je sais qu'il y a une question.
Well, I know it's a matter of interpretation, English and French here, but you are hesitating. You avoided citing the names of these two companies earlier, but now we know that it was an actual joint company and not necessarily bound by shareholders or contracts that was making that presentation. So that was the first time in that letter where you speak of an exemption to be made rather than going through the normal process of procurement. That would be the first time that GC Strategy got into this file, was part of it.
Je pense, Monsieur le Président, il y a eu...
I think, Chair, there were contracts with GC Strategies that had been let before June the 1st. So I think you have to distinguish between justification for sole source, which is often a case for contracts, and the exception for national security, where a given contract would involve agreements, international agreements. So these contracts that were signed for ArriveCAN were signed after this exception. No, there were contracts that were let before that, but after the letter. I'm talking about after the letter. Yes, there were contracts that were let after the letter. What proportion of contracts, Mr. Martel? Can you answer that? Well, I can commit to giving you the answer.
It's in writing.
Absolutely.
Mr.
Wow, so Luc Berthold was really, really going after that whole issue about the security clearance being waived and the security exemption for GC Strategies, and the fact that these guys are giving wishy-washy answers due to this whole thing. Like, here's the thing, like if you're given a security exemption, which I know it happened during COVID to speed stuff along, that's kind of interesting that they're willing to do that just to hurry things up in the government. But two, it begs the question, like, why? And why were they given a sole source contract for $25 million?
That's a lot of money, especially for a sole source.
It's like, absolutely.
You would think that you would want competitors for that to see who's going to be able to do it the best for the cheapest.
And back to everybody's point, and Fox made this point earlier. This BS excuse. Well, you know, we needed to have this quickly. Why? Everybody was not allowed in the country except for critical people. So you actually had, there was still probably a fair number of people crossing the border, but not in comparison to how many there would be on a day-to-day basis. And if the answer was, well, you know, we needed to be able to screen people very quickly. Well, what are you going to do? Are you just going to say, oh, well, you know, there's all these people, all these nurses. No, you can't go across the border? Like, none of this makes any sense, and the justification is so weak to just rely on that to say, well, we broke all of our processes that actually controlled for this type of corruption because it was the pandemic. And what ended up happening? All of this corruption.
Well, and people took advantage. That's exactly right.
100%. Joe, welcome to NP Supporter. Nice to have you aboard. Thank you very much. And Austin Gauthier with a $20 super chat. Thank you very much. I'm a bit behind, but in regards to Brock's comments about Canadians being disappointed in the CBSA at this point, I don't even trust that they are not just waving smugglers in at the border at this point instead of working. And that's the problem, right? There's probably a very large number of good people working at CBSA, but their leaders are the ones that represent them, and what they're putting forth is a very poor image of the CBSA, which is a terrible reflection of everybody that actually works there. So, you know, if we actually had some people that were courageous enough to come into committee that were executives in the CBSA and said, okay, committee, here's everything that happened. This is all I know. I don't know all of it, but this is what happened. You know what? Bravo, have some integrity. And then protect that person from any sort of reprisal. So, anyway, off we go. We're almost at the end, folks.
Baines, I understand you're up, sir.
Oh, we're certainly not listening to this at the end. Back to Brock.
Yes.
And then the same for the mains, 4,000 as well. I see thumbs ups all around. Thank you very much. Mr. Brock, sir?
Yes.
Before we adjourn?
Before we adjourn, colleagues, as a committee, we've been dancing around several issues of disclosure with various witnesses in terms of bottler communications with CBSA, the misconduct report that started the internal investigation, and the referral to the RCMP, and lastly, the whole issue regarding the deleted emails in the report generated by CBSA. So, Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to move a motion at this time in both official languages. The clerk has this motion in both languages, if you could distribute it to the committee. The motion reads, and I'm very flexible in terms of the timing here as well, colleagues, that the committee direct the Canada Border Services Agency, CBSA, to present no later than April the 2nd, 2024, A, all bottler AI communication with Aaron O'Gorman and other employees of the CBSA, B, the misconduct report received from Bottler AI in the fall of 2022, and C, any and all evidence pertaining to the deleted and or missing CBSA emails attributed to Min Doan.
Okay, so what I do know is this discussion goes on for about a half an hour. And I'm pretty sure that it was actually agreed to and pushed back. The date was pushed back to, I believe it was April 19th. So I believe that they actually did get most of what Mr. Brock was actually wanting to get here. Interesting that they're pushing it back to April 19th. That's an interesting date. That was actually proposed by Mr. Souza. So it's very close to the boundary change. Isn't that interesting? So, anyhow, I think it's interesting that that's how that ended, and I'm glad to see that they're subpoenaing from the, or not subpoenaing, they're requesting from CBSA all of the internal bottler communication, because then we get to see who said what, when did they say it. When did they say through email, well, maybe we should throw it to the RCMP? And then we'll see who within the CBSA knew that. And they're also asking all the information related to the deleted emails that Min Doan took, which, by the way, I believe he's still on stress leave. So this will be interesting. And the investigation continues, right? The more they dig, the more that comes out. So they really, really need to keep digging on this. Anyway, any final thoughts on tonight's Fox?
I think it's interesting that we found out that it was Min Doan who hired GC Strategies.
Well, he made the decision. He made the official decision.
Well, it makes me wonder if if he's getting a cut too. Like, I mean, if you asked me before, I'd say Cameron McDonald absolutely was getting some sort of kickback from this whole scheme. And now I'm wondering if Min Doan is as well.
You got to wonder, right? Because if those emails didn't disappear over 4 years, I would say Min Doan is a victim of trusting his employees to do their jobs. Right? Because, you know, as an executive, you're probably not going to know the ins and outs of some of these vendors. You're going to trust your other executives that bring you this information to bring you good information, and then you can make a decision because that's what your responsibility is. But 4 years of emails disappearing over the portion of COVID, which would have covered the entire period and the relationship with GC Strategies with CBSA.
Yeah, that's suspect.
Very strange. Very, very strange. So everything's on the table at that point. And it's also very strange that it's the Chief Information Officer of the CBSA who had their emails deleted. Anyhow, that's it, folks. So OGO is meeting later this week, but it is nothing to do with ArriveCAN. They're only talking about the main estimates as it relates to budgets. So nothing else yet for this week, which is hopefully going to be the case. I hope the MPs actually get to, you know, spend time with their families.
Yeah, spend some time with their families over Easter.
And the Conservatives get to see their constituents, and they get to have some high fives from everybody. So, Reba Cheap with a $2 super chat. Wish we could give more. Amazing gathering again. We appreciate anything that you can, and do give Reba Cheap. Never worry about that. It is all appreciated. Thank you very much for that. But thanks for sticking around. Thanks for coming back on, all 900 of you. It is great to do this with you. Thanks for the support, and we will we'll see you in the comments with some other videos that we're going to be dropping this week, and
we'll help have some more battery backups for next time.
Yeah, absolutely. So. So the super chats tonight will definitely pay for that. So thank you very much. And then hopefully we won't have any more issues. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for supporting and liking the videos. It really, really helps. Hunsford with a $2 super chat right at the end. As always, thank you very much. Thank you. It's the community which has made Northern Perspective what it is, and we will continue to thank you for that. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful, happy Easter if we don't chat with you.
And don't forget that our Sunday live stream is going to be one day earlier on Saturday this week.
Absolutely. So please join us Saturday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And bring your chocolate if you already have it. Otherwise, bring your favorite virtual drink. That's it for us, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.